Welcome back. My name is Amy Waterman. I'm a transplant psychologist and the creator of the Explore Living Donation Education Program.
And I'm Anjay Rastogi, a kidney doctor, also called a nephrologist.
Often kidney patients are interested in getting a kidney from a living donor, but aren't sure how to get the process started. So let's learn together. Dr. Rastogi, who can be a living donor?
So, Dr. Waterman, anyone who's over 18 and healthy can be a living donor. They don't have to be the same race, age, sex, or even blood type as a patient. And the last point is important because often there's a misconception that you have to be the same blood type to be a kidney donor, and that's not true anymore. Anyone who's healthy and willing to donate can be a donor.
A lot of people ask me, do donors have to pay for testing and hospitalization?
Another very good question. Donors do not have to pay for testing or hospitalization related to kidney donation. In fact, these costs would be covered by the recipient's insurance. However, the donor might have to pay for some costs like travel, place to stay, time off work, and child care during testing, surgery, and recovery. There are some programs to offset these costs that the transplant centers know about, and you should definitely inquire about them.
So how does someone find a living donor? It sounds really difficult.
I can see how finding a living donor can seem very overwhelming at first, but having said that, I see people find living donors all the time successfully. If you have a plan and take it one step at a time, it can be done.
I know there are a lot of ways that people get the word out about their need for a kidney, and a lot of generous people who step forward to be tested as donors. Some people share their story at a family meeting. Some have other people help them share their story with larger communities. This video has a lot of real-life stories about how different kidney patients found living donors. Let's watch together and learn more.
Absolutely.
There is no one right answer about whether to get a transplant. Every patient must make a personal decision that is right for him or her. Patients must decide if they want to pursue transplant, and if they do, whether they want to get on the waiting list or find a living donor.
Dialysis was, in my head, it's great, and I appreciate dialysis, but what is the next step?
We didn't have any idea about the kidneys, that they do kidney transplants or anything. So his kidney doctor told him that, there's a kidney transplant that you could probably get and look into. So he gave us all the information to look it up, and, we did, and we found the hospital, and we looked it up and got all the information.
Oh, well, if you want to get the information, the place you would start would be with your nephrologist that's attending to you.
And you also need to involve your own family, because those you live with, those others that love you, are affected by this process as well. And it's not just your decision alone. It really is everybody's decision.
How do you expect anyone to say, I'll be your donor? How do you ask anybody to be your donor?
So Ted said, what are we going to do? And I said, I don't know, but I can't ask anybody for their kidney. And he said, well, you're going to have to think of something.
You talk to your doctors, you talk to the nurses, you talk to the social workers, and they say, well, who are your friends? Who is your family? Who do you work with? Do you go to a church? You start talking to anybody and everybody that you can think of. They said most people have 100 or 200 people that they have contact with. So they said, I would suggest that you start talking to those 100 or 200 people.
Talking to my mother about being a donor, just more letting her know that I would do that, and that there was no pressure from her, and that I was a willing volunteer to go through the process.
What should we do? Is there any way else we can help? And I don't know if it was myself or anybody else that brought, hey, why don't we just see if any of us are a match? So I guess that time we told our dad that, hey, I think we should just go ahead and see if we can, if one of us are a match, just in case.
So on Monday, when I got to work, I made a phone call to Charles, and he was en route between copier jobs. And I said, I've got a question for you. And he said, what is that? I said, have you found a donor yet? And he said, no, not yet, but there's always, a hope of that. And I said, well, how would you feel about me giving you one? He said, yeah, right. He said, knock it off. That's not something to joke about. And I said, I'm not joking. And he got real quiet and he said, okay, I'll call you back in a few minutes. And he hung up.
And when she first said it, my first thought was unbelief, okay? I didn't believe it. And as we kept talking, I kept getting the idea that she was actually serious. And then I started thinking, this has got to be a miracle. This is God stuff for real. Because here's somebody that's not related to me. Our only connection is that she works in the office where I service the equipment. Man, how stranger can it get?
So I just told him, I said, your dad is very sick. He needed this kidney.
We called the phone number, we had the initial blood test done, and we found out that there were 4 or 5 of us that were actually matches, which is, fantastic, and it was great news to hear. And then we came together and we had a family meeting, and we ranked ourselves.
When my father actually spoke at the beginning too, he had become very emotional and cried. Well, my dad, like me, doesn't cry. We don't cry. But he did. And that really got to me because he when he cried, I guess maybe I just thought to myself, these people really, really want to help me. They really do. I mean, I've been all my life trying to help people myself, my family members. They want to help me. And I've got to let them do it.
You have to tell your story. You have to be willing to tell your story. Your friends want to know your story. They want to know what's going on with you. And you may not know it, but they may be sitting there thinking, gee, I wish there was something I could do.
I was sharing my story with people, or that others were sharing my story with others. I felt it was really important because everyone needs to be aware of what their bodies are telling them.
When I was first told by her mother that, she was going to need a kidney, I knew right away I would test. I didn't know much about being a living donor and as far as matching, being a match, being a non-blood relative, but I knew I would at least test. And if there was any possibility, I would be willing to do it.
When we find out I need a kidney transplant, he sent out an email to his family, letting know what's happening with me. I mean, we didn't really ask anybody to give me a kidney. He was just letting that what Donna did to that to respond to email back to him. He says, I have a slight. Well, she was 36 years old, and she said what? I had a slightly used kidney. Yeah. Something like that, yeah. So we had a big laugh about that.
I just thought that it was just like anything else. If she needed a couch and I had an extra one, there you go, she could have it. It's a good thing that she didn't need something really important like money. So
I decided that at one point, one thing that I could do is put a notice in the church newsletter that I need a kidney.
I think seeing that bulletin, the first thing that I thought about, kind of process down the road, was about how Alice mentioned that she's a single mother. And I thought about my wife being a mother, I thought about my children, and I thought about that importance of a mother in any child's life. And so I said, well, I think that's somebody that really deserves some help. And then I spent some time in prayer, and really what came back with my conversation with God that day was that he said, if there's a need, then fill it.
I was still kind of reluctant, and I was still kind of scared to go to my family and say, would you mind donating a kidney to me,
And he told us that the doctor had said that he needed to talk with us about living donation.
I asked the question just like the doctor was asked the question. The doctor want to know, will you give me a kidney?
We had no idea. We didn't fathom that there was a way to even be able to bring him back to health.
I thought they knew about it, I thought, well, I know about it, so they got to know about it. And but a lot of times we, assume a whole lot of things that it's not so.
After a number of conversations and thoughts, I started thinking maybe I should ask Brian. an adage I sort of kept living by, and that being the most you can do is say no. So I called him and saying, hey, can I come over? I got something to talk to you about. And so I remember driving up and getting out of the car and pacing out in front before I rang the doorbell.
He and Kim were standing on the front porch, and Barb and I were also on the front porch. And he just really brought up the question of kidney donation.
It was a life-altering question to ask, no doubt. Very nervous, but I needed to ask the question.
Well, I just remember him talking about how his kidney was failing and that he was going to have to go on dialysis, and it was time to actually think about a transplant. Our families had lived with Barry's kidney disease for 30 years. And I knew that at some point it would probably come down to the point where he would either go on dialysis and or want to have a transplant. And I always thought I was a candidate to be a donor. I would have been disappointed had he not asked.
I want you to know that. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like, I've tried to understand why somebody would say, how can I ask somebody? I would think if I was in Alice's situation that I would be asking everybody under the sun. There would be nobody in the world that doesn't know that I needed a kidney. And I guess when I explain a little bit more, yeah, I guess that's a tough thing to ask. But I guess when it's a life or death kind of a thing, that put it out there, just throw it out there. And the worst case thing that I knew that I could say was no. So if you're pondering it, the worst case answer you're going to get is no. But it only takes one person to say yes. You don't need anything more than that. You just need one. And I think sure, you might not be able to find somebody in your immediate family. You may not be able to find somebody in your immediate friendship circle that you have. Just expand that circle. Just keep going out.
First thing to do considering a transplant is start today. It is a process, but you need to start.
I think the biggest thing I would say is that don't let the fear of failure prevent you from doing it. There's risk associated with it, certainly. There's risk associated with anything.
I'm independent, very private, and I found out that really is a time and place for that. And the time that I needed to be transplanted or be on dialysis was not a time for me to be independent or private, but there's a lot of people that feel the same way that I felt, and there's a lot of people that are the same way, that I am. A lot of mothers, a lot of single parents that are in need of a transplant, but because they don't want to put their children through that, they don't want to put their children in harm's way. They remove that thought from their mind, and they end up being on dialysis for a long time, waiting for a cadaver, or just dying.
Your existence has a value in this community. I want you to build up on that value. You can be great help to others by being healthy. And I know that because I'm here. You can see me. If I wouldn't talk about this, you wouldn't know that I had a transplant.
There's so many people out there with kidney disease, and there are more people out there than I ever thought. And there are more people who have donated than I ever realized. And I only found this out through going through the process myself. And once I was exposed to this, I can't tell you how many times just through casual conversation I've met someone who either is on dialysis, who has donated an organ, or has been the recipient of an organ. And it's something that is very prevalent in our community, and it's something that a lot of us can do something about.
Oh, please explore the option. You have the right to say no, but go to the meetings, find out what's involved.
It's been a really good experience for me, and they're learning more and more. The techniques are getting better every day, and the process is getting simpler every day, and you ought to consider it.
Well, when you dialysis patient, if somebody want to give you kidney, I say go for it. It's just, love that person rest of your life, thanking that person rest of your life, but go for it.
Yeah, if I was sitting in a dialysis chair and the nephrologist came up to me that was attending to me and said, I want to give you the telephone number of the transplant office, I would urge anybody to take heed and call that number as soon as possible. You're going to find at the other end the most caring people that you probably ever talked to. Very considerate, very understanding, and just they will help you in every way that they can.
It makes you feel good as a person, knowing that you helped someone. That's how I feel. I feel great in doing it. It made me feel very good in doing it. Like I said, I would do it again.
Give that person a chance to love you. Give that person a chance to give you a gift that probably is an ultimate.
You can't do this on your own. You've got to have help. And they're not going to come knocking on your door. And that's part of what all of this is about. Knock on their door. Worst case scenario, they say no. So what? Go to another door. Knock.
Do it. I mean, from the bottom of your heart, because you're going to see how big a heart people have. You're going to be surprised.
Now, if you know you're in need of a kidney, first pray, okay, and let God guide you. And if you know someone who is accessible, who's willing, don't let pride get in the way. Come up out of yourself, like, okay, I need this, and I know someone who's more than willing, and then ask. We have not because we ask not.
This is a great gift. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of it.
The gift I got from this whole process is life. Having life and being able to live it with no limits.
I hope this video gave you some ideas on how you might find a living donor.
I tell my patients that they have to make a plan that works for them. So this brochure, How to Find a Living Donor, can walk someone step by step through designing a plan.
I like it. It helps you make a plan of where you want to do this, to have these conversations. It has some words that you could actually share in an email. It's really clear.
The potential donor goes through a very thorough screening process, and once clear to donate, the medical and surgical risks are very low. And you have to remember, no one should feel pressure to be evaluated or donate. A donor can back out from evaluation or surgery if they feel uncomfortable, even on the day of the surgery.
The last booklet in this series is called How to Help a Loved One with Kidney Disease, a Guide for Family and Friends. This booklet looks at all the ways loved ones can help a person who needs a kidney. It starts off with the basics about kidney disease and provides information about ways that family members and friends can help the patient, including being a living donor. Remember, the more people who are involved, the greater the chance for a successful transplant. Congratulations on finishing the Explore Living Donation video series.
And thank you so much for taking the time to make an informed treatment choice.
We wish you good luck
and good health.